Tell us a little bit about your journey. Where did you start? How did you get to where you are now? And tell us about that male-dominated world that it seems to be in Wall Street.
When I started, oftentimes I was the only woman, and I certainly was oftentimes the only Black woman in the room. I've spent many years talking about the power and the value of women in male-dominated industries and the importance of women feeling comfortable in those spaces. What I would say, in addition to that, is the more women that can support other women going through that journey, the better. I've had so many people over my career who would try to dim me. But I recall it was an executive assistant that pulled me to the side and said, there's something about you that people are uncomfortable about. And it's not that it's bad. You have much more to offer and you need to step into that. And I'm so grateful for her because she gave me permission to own my power. Whenever I talk about mindset, people think it's woo. But the first mindset shift is to just believe that you're worthy. But the biggest thing is just giving ourselves permission to know that we are capable, that we deserve it, and that it is well within our right to have it.
What does it take to be a financially empowered woman? And what can financially empowered women do together to change the world? A shocking statistic is that around 400,000 women in Australia are at risk of homelessness. And the cause of this is the lack of education about how to build a financial foundation, starting even before we first enter the workforce and well into our retirement years. My name's Dion Payne, and I'm the founder of the Financially Empowered Women podcast. I'm passionate about ending homelessness, and as part of that passion, I chose to look at the systemic barriers that are causing homelessness for women in the first place. The Financially Empowered Women podcast is designed to bring you the best experts from around the world to increase your financial know-how and give you practical and women-specific tips to overcome the challenges you might be facing, such as how to negotiate a better salary, demystifying super, or how to navigate a separation and ensure the assets are distributed fairly. My role is to provide you with the best information out there to change your trajectory and become a financially empowered woman, because you deserve it, and the world needs you more than ever to own your worth and help others to do the same. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Financially Empowered Women podcast. I'm your host today, Dion Payne, and today I'm joined by Dr. Renée Baker. Let me tell you a little bit about Renee. Renée Baker is a financial empowerment advocate, entrepreneur, and educator with over 2 decades of experience on Wall Street. As the founder and CEO of RBI Group, she focuses on helping financial advisors to grow their practices while championing financial education for women. Dr. Renee is a TEDx speaker, an adjunct professor, and she is passionate about empowering women to achieve success and achieve financial freedom. Welcome, Dr. Renee.
Oh, it is such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast today.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you here, and I'm so excited about this episode. And I'm just going to dive into the questions. I mean, in your bio, you talk about having 2 decades worth of experience on Wall Street. And one of the things that I've been doing recently with my husband is watching a lot of movies about Wall Street and stocks and things like that. And of course, it's Hollywood and it's dramatized, but it strikes me as a very male-oriented word, and yet you focus a lot on female empowerment. So tell us a little bit about your journey. Where did you start? How did you get to where you are now? And tell us about that male-dominated world that it seems to be in Wall Street.
Yeah, so I always laugh, even when I watch the movies about the perception of what it is on Wall Street and how people are, and maybe there was a little bit right? So you're absolutely right. Wall Street does not always have the best reputation, especially when it comes to the movies. It's portrayed as hyper masculine. There's always a lot of things going on, so not always so positive. But I said, when I started, I was the only woman, and I certainly was oftentimes the only Black woman in the room. And when I started, And I started in the 90s. So for those that are listening, very different time than now. And you can do the math on that. But, I always looked at it as, one, I worked at some really amazing firms, right? I worked with some really amazing people, and I don't discount anybody's story. And I've had my share of challenges. I will not deny that. But I majored in finance actually by accident. I was initially a biology major. And I think that that's a story to tell, because my story has always been around people. I am a people person. I wanted to be a doctor, and I am a doctor in a different way, not the way that I planned, but it worked out. And my story was around people. And the reason that I didn't become a doctor was because I was so, we would have a class with cadavers. And I was just so focused on the stories behind the people. And I'm like, what happened to them? What's their stories? Like, what's happening? What's going on? And I had a counselor who said, you're so focused on the stories and the people. And I guess at that time I was sensitive. I was emotional, and I wasn't crying or anything. I just had a lot of questions. I asked a lot of questions as I'm very curious. And she said to me, well, maybe you should consider something where you're not going to be as emotionally attached. We ever think about business and accounting or finance? And looking back at that guidance now, that actually worked out, because my entire career has been about people. So yes, what you see on Wall Street and what you see in the movies may apply to certain people, but that had not been my experience. My experience has been focused on people. My experience has been really building a reputation where I can understand money, how it works. I'll watch my first 10 years of my career. I'd say I listened, I'll watch, I was a sponge. I've worked everywhere from the trading desk, compliance, and then ultimately in marketing, where I can take those really complicated, complex ideas and distill them into ways that were consumable. And towards the end of my finance corporate career, I work very closely with financial advisors. And no one is more about people than financial advisors. But I'd say that it's not easy navigating a male-dominated world. It's not, career. But I still believe that we have to change the conversation around finance and bring more women into it, because the version that you saw scares a lot of women, and people don't always have a good experience. So I really focused on what I was there for, building wealth, but I will not discount. I've spent many years talking about the power and the value of women in male-dominated industries and the importance of women feeling comfortable in those spaces. So I don't discount it. What I would say in addition to that is the more women that speak and tell their story, the more women that can support other women going through that journey, the better. But we don't just need women doing it. We need men to also have those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there's quite a few parallels in your story and my story, because I also wanted to be a doctor when I was younger. And I got as far as, I didn't get into med school. I decided that I was going to do pharmacy instead, and then branched off into chemistry. But I am also in that. I love people. I love working with people. I love building relationships. And I went into a male-dominated industry, property development. And really, it took me a long time to understand that I couldn't play the game as, sort of putting on my man suit and, trying to compete with men. I had to play the game in a completely different way. I had to play the game in a way that was true to me as a woman. It took me a long time to learn that, and many mistakes along the way. But I agree with you. And there was something that you said, and the thought that came to me was, you can't be what you can't see. So if we aren't seeing women and women of colour in these types of organisations that have been traditionally male-dominated, then our children and future generations it's putting them at a disadvantage because they can't see that. So there's a gift there in being able to be yourself and be authentically feminine in male-dominated industries. And there's a whole unique set of skills and mindsets and values that can be brought to those roles to help them improve as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. I've said quite frequently, you have to see it to be it. And we need to see the representation of women in positions and in all positions. You know, typically you'll see more women in certain roles. So maybe they'll be in marketing or compliance, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we need to see women at every stage, every level in compliance. And for me, it took me a long time to find my voice in that space. Right. I can't deny that I definitely had to go through my journey. Like I said, that first 10 years or so, I just listened. I watched, I observed, and I tried to pick up what I thought success looked like at that time. So, you know, at that time it was, you know, blue suits, gray suits, black suits, brown if you're really trying to be a little fancy. And till later on that I just said, you know what? I need to show up and I need to be me and I need to be unapologetically me. And that didn't come without some challenges, for sure. I definitely had my share of challenges of wanting to be me and breaking free of that mold. And I guess that's what led me to like where I'm at now, because I will tell you, there wasn't always space or safety to show up as yourself. And a lot of the conversations that we've had here in the US in the last, I'd say 5 years, that's starting to pivot, we were not having when I entered the industry. But I want, you know, when I talk to young women, especially I majored in finance undergrad, and you know, I would hear young women say, well, I'm not good at math. I'm not good at math. I can't be in finance because I'm not good at math. But you have other skills, you have relationships. Now we have systems that do that. You know, I used to have a HP calculator, a HP 12C, and I'd be on my calculator learning the formulas. We have systems. Heck, we have AI now. But we need more women. We need more relationships. We need all the different traits that women bring to the industry. And you know what? I always tell, listen, I am a girl's girl. I'm wearing my heels. I typically have on pink. And I walk in with purpose in every room that I enter, because I want other young people to see that you can be successful and still be yourself. And I don't think that that's always articulated, that success comes in many different ways.
Yeah, 100%. And as you mentioned about the black suits and the blue suits and you're certainly a long way from that now, aren't you?
Oh, so far away. And it's so funny, but I'm not as far as I would have liked. I remember I was just reflecting on so I've journaled my entire career, by the way. So I just journal. It's interesting to like look back now. But I remember going to a conference, and it was an investment conference. And I had on a black suit. But that day I decided that I was wearing purple shoes. Velvet purple shoes. And if anybody who knows me, it remembers these purple shoes. I was wearing these purple shoes, and it was the first time that I wore them. I got so much more conversation about the purple shoes. And it was so funny because, you know, I'm like, they're shoes. Like, where else are you going to have your style? Like, how else can I differentiate myself? How do you separate yourself from the sea of sameness? Obviously, I'm separating myself by being a woman of color, but I walked there with the purple shoes. And I will tell you, it was in that moment, I still remember, I can visualize it to this day. I did not turn back. And it's so much bigger than purple shoes, quite frankly. Like, I'm smart. I'm going to show up in the meetings. I'm going to not, you know, there was times where I would shrink because I was trying to fit the mold of what I thought success looked like. Or there would be people, I've had so many people over my career who would say to me, just like they would try to dim me. They would try to dim my light. And what I thought is I was doing something wrong. But I recall, and it was an assistant it was an executive assistant that pulled me to the side and said, there's something about you that people are uncomfortable about. And it's not that it's bad. You have much more to offer, and then you need to step into that. And I'm so grateful for her because she gave me permission to own my power that I didn't think that I had. And she taught me that I could still be me. And we need role models to represent that, to showcase that for us, and to be able to be ourselves. We can be smart, we can be bold, we can be beautiful, and we can love people. We can wear purple shoes if we want and still be successful.
I love that. And I guess in the same way that you had somebody there that was encouraging you to claim your power and really, sort of move from that place in yourself, you help other women to do that through the financial empowerment. So what got you started in that? What were the reasons that you thought that was going to be a good idea? And share some of the stories of the women that you've been able to help as a result.
Yeah, I love supporting other women. And basically, I needed what I didn't always have, quite frankly. As much as I am big on women supporting women, Wall Street, from when I was there, wasn't quite that way. So I needed what I didn't have. And one of the commitments that I made to myself was that I'm always going to be there to support women. And I am who I say I am. I got your back. You don't have to worry about it if I give you feedback, because I'm known for being very direct. It is direct with love. It's not ever coming from a place of disrespect. But I want to empower women and encourage women in a way that I didn't always have. I'm always going to see the value in a woman. I don't subscribe to imposter syndrome. I think it's a social construct that is meant to kind of diminish who we are. And I'm not saying that it's not real for people, because I have had those experiences myself. But when I made a decision, I said, I'm not aligning with that. I'm going to change my mindset around it. I'm going to help women. But I'm going to, whether it's, I have several mentees, right? I'm going to support women. I'm talking, and I'm a mother of 3 daughters. I have 3 girls. So that's, by design, I am a mom. I'm a girl mom, right? So I had to instill in my daughters, right, that they needed to own their place in the world. And I also wanted them to be individuals. I don't want them to be another version of me. We have different personalities. And I don't know anybody listening, but when you have 3 daughters, you are dealing with, you are a strong, resilient human. And I am a strong, resilient woman. But I found that there's so much power in supporting other women. And whether I'm mentoring women, coaching women, supporting women through nonprofit organizations, partnering with women, and whether I'm consulting with them, or most women know that they can pick up the phone. I am a woman's cheerleader. Like, if you're having a day, I don't care if I'm having a day, I got your back. I'm going to be there for you. And, there's women who will be afraid to raise their prices. Like, they're not owning their worth. I spoke to a woman last week, a young woman who very well educated, very smart, very accomplished, but for some reason, not always, organizations don't always see your value, right? For whatever reason. So for whatever reason, she's attached her value to how they see her, not realizing that if you step away, that this is not all there is. Sometimes you might need to step away to get to where you need to be. I know that was my experience, but I try to share as real as possible. I'm not going to give you all the perfect cliches that are going to make you feel good. I'm going to take it from, I only speak about what I know. This is my experiences. This is what I see in you. And if I can bring light to somebody or help to illuminate a light on another woman, I'm going to do that, because there's too many women that I've experienced that have been shrinking, have been told to shrink, have been forced to shrink, who don't see their worth, who are working twice as hard for half the amount of what they're getting. And especially women of color, or they may not feel confident about themselves or about money. So I decided that for the rest of my days, I'm going to pour into women at every stage for those that want to listen, because I'm also not going to force my joy on to anybody.
Good call. And in your role in the types of work that you do, what are some of the big financial mistakes that women make, and how can they be avoided?
Yeah, the biggest one is just not having a conversation, not being educated. I can't tell you how many, I work with a lot of financial advisors, but I can't tell you how many women have no idea what's going on with money. It's like, I don't want to know. I don't want to talk about money. It's taboo, or they don't give themselves the permission, I guess, or they think that they're not good enough to know about it. But the first thing is lack of education. Get educated. Money is more than budgeting. Money is more than the lack and scarcity that you might feel. It's like, oh, I can't buy this coffee. No, I'm talking about that. We're beyond the budgets, right? But get to know the budgets. Talk about credit. Talk about ownership. Talk about investing. And give yourself permission to not know everything. And I also run into a lot of women, and I don't say this in a negative way, but some of the mistakes is not being vulnerable enough to say what you don't know. And it's actually okay. You could be super smart and not know about money. Just like there's a lot of things that I don't know about. That's why I call an expert, right? I'll call someone that knows, right? We just have to get more educated and give yourself permission to learn as you go. And don't ever feel like there's some people who say, oh, well, it's too late for me. No, keep going. It's not too late. I'd rather you learn today and start making those changes today than not to ever pick up on it. And I also see a lot of women that can be very generous. You're not a bank. So don't deplete yourself. Giving. And then when it's time for you to charge, you're not charging, but you're giving. I know that because I've made those mistakes. So that's, I think women can get more confident about money. I can go on and on about women and some women and how they spend money. It requires a lot of maintenance for some of us, right? So like allocating appropriately, but just being educated, know your money story, define it, figure it out, get yourself a good accountant, and make sure that you're learning as you go, and ask questions. Do not let anybody tell you without you asking questions.
Look, that's really... Sorry, go on, Renee.
Well, I was going to say, that's just some of the things that, that I heard. The biggest one is just not knowing what's going on. Can't build wealth in silence, and you got to learn how to speak up. Yeah,
that's really good advice. And I just want to sort of go back to the reason that I started this podcast. My background is I raise capital for property developers that are creating affordable and sustainable housing. And when I just had this real sense of, okay, we need to get more women investing into this. And then I was looking at, well, why are women ending up more at risk of homelessness or being homeless? And it did come back to that lack of financial awareness. And then I was sort of looking into, well, what are all the reasons that this is happening? And it starts early. It starts, even with pocket money between boys and girls, and not being able to negotiate. You might be starting a career, not negotiating and valuing what you're actually worth. And then, taking time out of the workforce and not realizing that, hey, you need to be putting something into your retirement account while you're not working. So lots of different reasons and lots of structural systemic barriers as well. And I just find the whole thing very fascinating in that, yes, okay, there's this, it's not that the education's not there. It's more about how we make that process more joyful and something to be celebrated. I mean, I reckon I could call up a whole number of girlfriends and say, hey, let's go out, let's go for coffee, and we're going to go and have a chat and we're going to have a great time. How can we do that? How can we bring that same energy to our finances as well? So it just feels like something to be celebrated and nurtured which is what we naturally do anyway, rather than something to be shunned and go, oh, well, I can't deal with that. And somebody else, I'll get somebody else too. And then when there's nobody else and it's back down to you as a woman, who do you call? You've got to rely on yourself. And if you don't have that education in the first place, then that's really tricky.
Yeah, it's not, it's like talking. I've recently been trying hard to get my parents to talk about, after this life, like what does we all have to have these conversations. And oftentimes I find that women carry the financial weight, but don't have a financial voice. And carrying that weight, like it feels so heavy for systemic reasons, for cultural reasons, for reasons that, that have nothing maybe to do with where they are today, but they're carrying the weight of it. So one of the things that, I've had conversations. So you do fun women events, like women, wealth and wine, right? Like having conversations. And if you don't drink wine, that's just fine, right? Like changing the conversation and not making it heavy. But what I do appreciate, what I will say, I feel this is not rooted in any data, right? Like I think it was only like between 25 and 33% of women don't have the basic financial knowledge. I feel like Gen Z, this younger generation is really having more conversations. Now, I'm not going to say how they get the information is always agreed upon, especially for those of us that have come up in the industry and are not big on finfluencers. I think that's what they call it, right? Finfluencers. But they're hungry, they're curious, they're asking questions, they're owning their money story in a way that I have not seen in my experience. So I think women are being more liberated when it comes to money. And because I have the belief system to where you said no one's coming to save you, so you have to save yourself. And even women that are married who have chosen to stay home, I still encourage them to still know what is going on with your spouse's finances, because in my career, I've seen women, spouses pass away suddenly and they're not sure what to do. I've seen, unfortunately, situations that end in divorce and the women don't know what to do. But just understanding that you have the ability to, that's why I say change your mindset around money. And listen, it's not always going to be fun. It's not always going to be interesting. But I can tell you what's less fun and less interesting is being on the other side of that.
Oh, 100%. And I've got many, many stories of women who, starting from they're divorcing, they're in that process and they are not getting the fair share of the assets and the difficulty that causes. And then, I've got people, I know people in my network who are couch surfing or sleeping in cars. And so I can see, just not having that financial education and awareness at the beginning, what that can lead to. And it's really quite scary. And what's interesting is that it also doesn't seem to matter what the income level is. There is always still some kind of trauma that happens as a result of not being fully aware of what's happening with your finances.
Yeah, that happens. And it's always so heartbreaking when you know that someone has done very well, right, financially in their career, or they've been married and they've done very well, and then something happens, right? And life is lifing for all of us at any given time. So this is not beyond anybody. But that financial trauma that you speak of, whether it happens through death, divorce, job loss, especially in the environment where, if you're a high income earner, it might take you a little bit longer to find a job. Illness, like there's so many different things. But what I always say is I try to help people, financial education is where we start. I try to help people understand that financial liberation is kind of where we're going. and give yourself grace, right? We're always going to, when you fall down, you get back up. And there's so many different tools and resources. And listen, it happens, and it does happen, but it's heartbreaking, I would say, that we're not enough people are prioritizing this. And it just seems like, here you go again, talking about money. But that's why I'm so passionate around financial education, because I know what education has done for my life. And I know that it can change lives. And it's just us not needing to know everything, but even knowing enough to ask the right questions to get the help that we need, and to get an advisor if you need to. Like, you need to be in the driver's seat of your finances or your financial life, right? So that's why I do this work. That's why I have these conversations, and it will come up. I will tell you, Dion, money comes up most of the time. People are talking to me like, oh, here she goes. I'm going to talk about money. You are talking to me. Money is coming up. I'm going to talk about it. And I even have a friend group where we would share our salaries, because that way, most people don't even want to talk about it because right, it's so private. No, we're going to tell each other our salaries. That way we know, like, oh, I need to go get a new job, or I need to ask for a raise, or, oh, I'm doing okay. Okay. So, but sharing and having that conversation in the homes with your friends, with whomever, because we got to break down those barriers. And I'm sure HR people are probably like, oh, no, we don't want you to talk about your salary. But if you're listening to this, talk to your friends about their salaries, especially in their same job, because the dispersion between pay is ridiculous. And ask your male friends, too, what they're getting paid.
Yeah, and it's that thing of when you shine a light on something and it becomes clear and transparent, it's like, oh, okay, you can do something with that information then. That's empowering in and of itself. Absolutely. And as well, my mother always says, when you know better, you do better. And that's all you can do. Is when you know better, you can do better. And it's when someone takes control away and you take your power back, then you can make change. And I believe that, and I've seen it. I've seen people turn their lives around, changing their mindset, changing their understanding of money, and change their lives. And the thing is that most people hopefully realize is that we actually get to choose, right? We actually do get to choose. I don't want everything we have, everything we do starts with a decision. And my decision is no more. This is not the way that I want to live. This is not how I want to be. And I can make a decision to change. And that doesn't just apply to money. That applies to a lot of things in life. And that's why you see people who come from very, from dire situations rise, and people who have abundance and financial wealth lose. It starts here. So I'm really big on how our mindset really can help shift things. And I've seen it. I've seen a lot. I've experienced a lot. And I just always remind people, we have the ability to choose. It might take some time, but you got to just start. Yeah, 100%. And as you were talking, I was thinking about a friend of mine who she actually, a few years ago, so 2017, 2018, I completed a development of 14 one-bedroom townhouses. And for me, that was an amazing feat. Number one, we made money. We made a really great return from that. But number two, there were people in my community that were able to buy into those homes. The average price of those was $350,000, whereas the median house price in the area was $600,000. And I ran into a girlfriend the other day, and she was actually the very first person that bought one of those off the plan. So it was a big step for her. It was a big step for me because that was the biggest project I'd ever done at that point. But it was also a big step for her because she had a small inheritance from her father, and she knew that she wouldn't be able to stay in the area. And she wouldn't be able to buy a house in the area. That was what she wanted to do. And she wouldn't have been able to buy a house with what she had, but she was able to buy into one of these. I ran into her the other day. She said she actually bought that one for $330,000 because she was the first one. But it had pretty much doubled in value which then gave her the funds to go and buy somewhere else that was bigger, that was more suited to her in a location that she really wanted to be. And so that was really great for me to close the loop on that whole situation. To go, okay, so this was somebody that started with not very much, but the power of property, or it could be the power of investing, it could be the power of, that wealth building. It really changed the game for her. So it is transformative, and it's a beautiful thing, and everybody deserves this. This is what I feel. So yeah, just what are the mindset shifts that actually need to happen for people to realize that they can take matters into their own hands and build that financial abundance for themselves?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite and most painful topics. And that's such a wonderful story, because there's somebody that watched that happen who will now replicate it. You may never know who they are, but they may replicate it. And one of the conversations, whenever I talk about mindset, people think it's woo, like, oh, mindset, it sounds so woo. But what I'm saying to you is changing the way you see money, changing the way you see acquiring wealth, changing the way you might even historically or culturally think about things. So some of the things that I do is, first, just agree that I always say abundance is our birthright, right? Abundance is our birthright. But wealth is for everyone, like you said. Wealth is not just for some of us. We all have access to it. How we get access to it is different. Your number is different from my number. My number is different from someone else. But the first mindset shift is to just believe that you're worthy, like that the value is yours to have. And that was a big pivot for me, by the way, because I'm from a small town, and I always thought it was just good enough, right? Like, it's good enough. I got a job. That's good enough. But when I found out that I was massively underpaid as for what I was doing, I needed to make a different choice. But I say we just need to be more intentional, right? Like, change your mindset, be more intentional around what we do about it. But the biggest thing, Dion, is just giving ourselves permission to know that we are capable, that we deserve it, and that it is well within our right to have it. Wealth is not just for some, it is for all. And another thing, I just had this conversation today. Some of us live in this mindset of scarcity, where we think, you have, I don't have, but I can't have if you have. No, there is enough for all of us. I just said to someone today, there's a lot of money out here. That's why I'm not ever going to be ashamed. If you do what I do, I'm like, great, more people talking about it. We need more people to talk about financial education. We need more people financially liberated. I own a consultancy. There are people who won't even talk because their competition. No, we collaborate. There's enough for all of us. But I think that getting out of that mindset of scarcity is a big one. And also the second one is believing that you're worthy and that you have value. I say for me, those are the two things. It's not a lot. Usually people will say three things. Decide, right? If you need a third thing, just do it. But the reality is real ownership, real power doesn't compete. And we have competing, I don't know if I'm saying this right, but basically what I'm trying to convey is, if I can't feel like I deserve wealth and also feel like I'm not good enough. The two emotions can't compete. One's going to take over. So I don't live in a mindset of scarcity. We just lost a client this is a real live, this is happening to me in real time. Lost a client. Nice size client. We lost this client. And my first thing was, okay, am I sad? Yeah, making sure did we do anything wrong? It's nothing like that. It's something that is completely out of our control. So I thought, okay, well, that must mean that we have to make room for a bigger client. And I'm not in bed. I'm not upset at all. I'm like, oh, that must mean we have to have a bigger client. Now, people think I'm delusional, and I will admit I do have a level of what people might think is delusion, but I don't live in scarcity. I trust that if I do what I need to do, that it will work. I truly believe that it's going to be what it's supposed to be. I believe it at my core. I don't just say it, I live it. So yeah, scarcity is the number one thing. And even with everything that's happening economically in the world, I still remind people, there are a lot of people who made a lot of money during the Great Depression. There's a lot of money that's moving globally. We might have to pivot on how we get it. We may have to change. We may have to be bolder. You also have to get out of your comfort zone. I have to get on the phone and call people, and I'm not known to be the most vulnerable person, but I have to speak and talk about what I need. So we really need to just get out of that scarcity mindset, believe that we are worthy and that we have value, and just believe it and do it, not just talk about it.
Now, Dr. Renee, that is a great note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that you have the Unleashed Life podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how our audience could listen to that?
Yeah, so we're about to launch season 2 for the Unleashed Life podcast, and it speaks about, breaking down the barriers. We talk about more than money. We talk about money. We talk about mindset. We talk about mastery and all the messy middle. Because I want us to live more of an unleashed life and break down the barriers that hold us back from being our greatest selves. And I also wrote a book called Abundance Unleashed, which speaks about how we can live abundantly beyond wealth, right? From in our health, for ourselves, and in our world. So I live it, I believe it, and listen, we all have the ability to build wealth, and I'm not trying to minimize it at all. It takes a lot of work. It's not easy. We have to do the work. But listen, if you can't do it, if Google is not your friend, call a professional to help you. But thank you for all the great work that you're doing, because the more of us that are talking about it and the work that you're doing with the homeless and eradicating that and housing, all helps us have a global world. You're in Australia, I'm in Florida, and here we are connected.
Yeah, which is amazing, isn't it?
Yes, amazing.
Well, Dr. Renee, thank you so much for your time. I will have all of the links to the podcast and the book in the show notes when this episode is released. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a fantastic conversation and I've had a lot of fun. And one of the things that we spoke about was how we bring fun and joy to money. Taking part in conversations like this, I think, is one of the ways to do that. So thank you.
Thank you. Financial literacy education.
I love it.